Whether you're the type of person who thinks you just need a tiny pinch of salt to season pasta water, or you think that pasta water needs to be as salty as the sea, you're wrong. And before you even ask me, the consideration that you should not add any salt to your pasta water is just flat out wrong. You could have the saltiest, most delicious pasta sauce in the world. If you have unseasoned pasta that you're eating it with, it's going to taste bland and weird and salty at the same time. If that makes sense, it's just not good eats. So what's the answer? How much salt should you be adding to your pasta water? Let me break it down. If you are the type of person who likes to season their pasta water to taste, and what I mean by that is you bring up some water to the boil, add some salt, you taste it, and it tastes like it has enough salt for you. That's fine, it's just very inaccurate. Even myself, who's made thousands of plates of pasta in his lifetime and seasoned thousands of pots of pasta water, the results are very inconsistent, and you can have some things that are very seasoned or under-seasoned. So what's the answer? How much salt should you be adding to your pasta water? To answer this question and to make it absolutely foolproof, we're going to use mathematics and ratios. Yay! Fun, maths, yay. The way I would start this off is first by measuring the volume of water. To get the volume of water, what you're going to do is take your pot. This is the pot that I'm going to be cooking my pasta in. I'm going to fill it up probably just over halfway, and that is about 2 liters in this case. And that is going to be my amount of liquid. This stays standard in our mathematical ratios moving forward. Now, depending on the type of sauce that you're using and how salty you like your pasta, I would personally recommend 3 different ratios of salt. So the first ratio of salt that I would recommend is 1% salt. In this case, we have 2 liters of water, 2000 milliliters. We are using 20 grams of salt. If mathematics isn't your thing, I'll leave a calculator. It's a very simple Excel sheet in the description of this video, which you could use to make your own calculations. But anyway, with 1% of salt, I feel like that is enough for a very lightly salted pasta. Now, I would use this much salt if I was cooking something with a very salty sauce. So something like a carbonara with a lot of salty guanciale, a puttanesca with lots of olives and capers and anchovies, anything that's very, very salty. You still want your pasta to be seasoned, because like I said before, if you have very bland, unseasoned pasta water, you're gonna have very bland, unseasoned pasta. It's like having chips without salt and then like a very well-seasoned ketchup. It's still bad. So yeah, 1% salt is what I would use if you have anyone in your family that is very sensitive to salt, but you still want them to enjoy flavor. Yeah, for me, this is a really, really good, safe amount. Next, and this is my preferred amount of salt, this is 1.5% salt. So in this case, we have 20 grams of water. That would make this 30 grams of salt. For me, this is the Goldilocks amount of salt. Your pasta comes out really nice and seasoned. When you add your salty pasta water to your sauce, it just keeps it well seasoned, even though you're adding a bunch of water to it. Pasta is very starchy, so you need salt to get the most flavor out of it. Like for me, this is a winner. But if you do have a sauce that is on the salty side, this may be too much. And lastly, we have 2% salt solution. This to me is a little bit too salty, but if you have a guest that is really, really loves salt and loves things very, very salty, this is a good place to be. Or if your pasta sauce is a little bit under-seasoned, you might want to add slightly more salt to your pasta water. Or if it's a pasta that cooks very, very quickly, you might want a higher concentration of salt to season it as quickly as possible. Going back to what I said in the beginning about debunking that thing where like you want your pasta water as salty as the sea. As I just mentioned, 2% salt is kind of like the upper limit of how much salt I would add. Like I think this is a bit too much salt, but there's different people have different tastes, you know? The Mediterranean Sea, by comparison, is 3.8% salt, roughly, more or less. I'm no expert, but like, that's almost twice as much salt as what I consider too salty. So yeah, seasoning things as salty as the sea, I think is kind of BS, personally. But Steve, I don't feel like measuring stuff each and every time that I want to like make a plate of pasta. It's kind of a hassle. Why am I pulling out a weighing scale? There is an easy answer. The way I go about doing this that makes things very easy for me is doing things volumetrically. Now, I usually hate volumetric measurements. I think that weighing things out using a scale in like grams is like the most reliable way to get like a recipe down and to follow a recipe. However, with pasta, it's not like a very precise baking recipe, like a few grams here or there are not going to matter enormously. So, what I do is take this measuring cylinder and I fill it up to the 2-liter mark. For me, that is more than enough pasta water for myself and my girlfriend, especially if it's short pasta and it doesn't need to be like super submerged. And to that, I actually weigh in tablespoons. I know, I hate it, I hate myself for it, but 1 tablespoon is roughly 15 grams. 2 tablespoons, then that is more or less 30 grams. 30 grams of salt for 2 liters of water is perfectly seasoned pasta water every single time. You are welcome. One caveat which I will add, different types of salts are technically more or less saltier than each other, so you're gonna have to find a ratio that works for you, that works for your palate. Maybe 1% salt is absolutely perfect. Maybe where you're at, the salt that you have access to is just not as salty. And you might want something close to 2%. Weigh these out, see what works for you, see what works for you, the people that you cook for, and play it by ear. Cooking is not always super exact. It's always going to mix and match a little bit based on the ingredients that you have. The only thing that I would recommend is kind of stay away from iodized salt. It's not that great. Sea salt is typically the best. I mean, I could be biased. I'm a Mediterranean boy. Rock salt is fine. It will just take longer to dissolve. And when you do add your salt to your pasta water, it kind of helps if it's already boiling. It'll help the salt to dissolve faster. If your pasta is cooking in water that hasn't had all the salt dissolved, it's not gonna absorb as much salt. And for those of you who are worried, like, damn, Steve, that's like way too much salt inside your pasta water. Like, I have high blood pressure, that's not good. Keep in mind, yes, we're adding a fair amount of salt, like 20 grams of salt, even like the lowest amount, is kind of a lot. Like, it's a lot of salt. But it is diluted in 2 liters of water, and the majority of that salt does not penetrate inside of your food. If you taste the 2 liters of pasta water that you have left over, or like, let's call it 1.9 liters of pasta water that you have left over, it's still really salty. Like, the majority of that salt that you are adding is getting washed away. You just want like a nice salty solution for your pasta to absorb and cook inside. I hope you found this video useful. If you want more information on how to cook the best plate of pasta possible, I actually released a course on Skillshare. You can get a free month membership, which gives you full access to the course using the link in my description. I've actually released another couple YouTube videos on how to make the best possible plate of pasta in 10 steps, as well as a couple individual recipes. Everything will be linked in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped. And have a good day, happy cooking, enjoy your pasta. Bye.